So, are you ready? You are not ready. So I start just to introduce the event and the No Border Feminist Collective that organized this event. We are a new trans feminist yeah. We are a new trans feminist migrant collective. We started to meet, to discuss in details, about the Bolivian situation in the last months. And from these meetings and discussion starts the wish, the desire to meet again and to speak about also other stuff that are in our lives, because one of us is from Bolivia, so we start just from this need to speak about what is going on in Latin America also in general. And then came out also the idea to call Davide to make the presentation here in Berlin about his books. And so we thought that maybe one of these presentation could give a feminist perspective about what is going on all over the world with the women revolution in Rojava and all the uprising of women organization in Palestine and also in other places. And yeah, we thought that would be really nice to put together the genealogy perspective and the Palestinian perspective about how the self-organization of women can organize in a segregation situation. So starting from the meaning of the wall here in Berlin, now what means walls and segregation and apartheid in other places of the world. And yeah, here there is Amara, Davide and Fidaa, and Magda will present them more in details. And yeah, just to inform you that we will make some pictures that maybe that we will post on Facebook and on internet. So if there is someone that doesn't want to be filmed or yeah, picture, just tell us, and we will be to don't take you in pictures. And you can follow us on Facebook and here there is also Radio No Border, that is one of the projects that we are in connection with, and we are going also to make some lecture and project on the radio and also other stuff. So if you want to give us your contact, we will inform you about all the future projects. Thanks.
There are some dogs around, so don't be scared. So I just want to introduce our speakers. So we have Fidaa, she's from Gaza. She's a gender studies researcher and feminist activist, now based in Berlin. Then we have Davide. Okay, maybe all Italians, they know him. He's quite famous. Yeah, because now he's one of the few people who is giving a lot of information about what is going on in Rojava, because he was there fighting as international fighter. Now he wrote 3 books, maybe 4, considering your last book, the first book. So you can buy them, but they're only in Italian for now. We're trying to find some publisher and to translate them maybe in German or in English. and they are very good books because it's a perspective from inside of the Rojava situation and Rojava revolution. And then we have Amara. She is a member of the European Jineolojî Committee. So there are really three speakers who will somehow create a link between Palestine and Rojava. So we're really happy to have these two topics because mostly they are quite separate, also because, okay, Palestine and Rojava, two different areas and backgrounds and of course political situations, but they have so much in common. So we try to bring these common points today. And there will be other two events with Davide. One is on Tuesday, 11th of February in Kefetish, organized by Kefetish. Together with Jacopo, we will focus only on the presentation of Davide's last book, which is The City and the Ghost, and talks about Berlin Wall and the walls today. And then we will have another event on 15th of February, so Saturday, in Kids Kommune, with Kids Kommune, organized by Kids Kommune, and in Vetomat. And we will talk about Kids Kommune as experience and also the Rojava Kommune. So it's like, again, build connection between here and there. So enjoy the event. I give the microphone to Davide, who will also moderate this event. And yeah, enjoy.
Thank you to everyone for being here, and as a very short introduction, I would like to thank especially the No Border Collective to have organized this event that is very unique, I must say, not just I think for Berlin, but the European level is not so easy to have the opportunity to discuss with both representatives of the Palestinian women structures and organizations and the Kurdish movement and structures of women. As Magda said, I've been invited here as a moderator mainly because I've been in Palestine and Kurdistan and interviewed women in both places. And I also would like to thank No Border Radio for making podcast of this event. And last but not least, I really would like to thank the Yorck Bethanien for hosting the event in the first place, but also because actually New York helped me in the past when I was in need, and they were very much in solidarity with me in the last years when I needed help here in Berlin. So I had the chance to meet the people squatting this place, and I really want to thank them twice. And also, most importantly, I want to thank New York for having portrayed a picture of our martyr, Italian martyr Lorenzo Orsetti, Shahid Kosher Pilin, in front of this building. If you see the graffiti in New York, you see the portrait of Lorenzo. And in March, the 18th of March, will be the first anniversary of the martyrdom of Lorenzo in northern Syria. He fell fighting against the Islamic State in the province of Deir ez-Zor, in the city of Baghouz. He was the second Italian person to have fallen in this struggle in northern Syria. And by the way, there will be plenty of events in Italy, especially in Florence. There was a city around between 18th and 21st of March, and you are all invited to come to these events. And since I mentioned Lorenzo, I also want to remember another incredible person and extremely good friend that was from Potsdam, Michael Panzer. I also had the honor to know personally in Syria, and who really was so central in also making us aware as internationals when we went there. And then whereas Lorenzo fell fighting for the People Protection Units, the YPG in Syria, then Michael in 2018 fell fighting for the People Defense Units, the HPG with the PKK in other parts of Kurdistan. So he was from Potsdam, and he made his living for a long time in Berlin. But there are also, of course, women that joined, international women that joined this struggle, women from Berlin also. And for this, I also want to give the microphone for a second to Amara to add something on this respect.
Thanks. Sometimes it is hard to speak about our martyrs, but as the Kurdish women's movement and the Kurdish movement say, the martyrs never die because they live in us, in our thoughts, and that is also why we have to tell their stories and to continue their path they choose for revolutionary, for freedom, for life. So I want to add to the other two shaheeds like Lorenzo and Michal, Sarah Handelmann. Sarah Dorshin in the Kurdish women's movement. She she's a German woman and she left 2017. But I met her the first time here in Bethanien. It was 2016, and we both went to Bakur. I think I went there before, and I made a speech like now a bit to introduce the struggle which is going on in Bakur. And after the introduction, she came to me and I was asking like, how can I join the struggle? How can I support the struggle? Like with a really open heart, really brave heart. And she joined from that day on, like with her heart completely. And first she was struggling here, fighting here. Then she went to Rojava, and then she decided to go to the mountains. And she is still a super great revolutionary guerrilla. I can just remember her eyes when I saw them there, and she said like, I'm on the right. I mean, now I know why I was what I was looking for. And also Michael Panzer, he also said like, please tell everyone in Germany you meet that I reached the point that I find the place what I was searching for all the time. And also Sarah, she's her biggest wish. Sorry, also for my English. I'm not used to speaking English. My biggest wish was when she was in the mountains, she wanted to write a letter to Germany, to Berlin, to all the anarchist friends, to tell them why it's so important to organize each other, or with each other, and not to split, not to build up segregations, not to build up walls between us, because we have to fight together for the freedom. We cannot we cannot reach freedom for ourselves when there is still people which are not free. And this is why I'm so happy also to be here and to talk about Palestine, about Rojava, Kurdistan, and that so many people came here today.
So, to begin with this discussion, I guess that everyone in the last years had the opportunity to see on the internet or even in TV pictures portraying Kurdish women fighting for a cause, for their cause. And about this we will discuss later, but it's also true, I think, that much more rarely we see pictures or we see movies or information about Palestinian women and the destiny they face in their land and the struggle they bring forward for their rights and for their freedom. And so I would like to pose to both Fidaa and Amara the same question, but I would begin with Fidaa. What is the role of women in the Palestinian struggle? What is the role of women in the liberation movement for Palestine right now?
Thank you all for coming, and thank you for having us here. Thank you, Amara. And as we say, glory to the martyrs, so they will live with us, they don't die. Regarding the women movement in Palestine or the feminist movement in Palestine, in the recent months we had this new movement, emerging movement, is called Talat. It translates into English like we are hitting the streets. and I'll talk more, elaborate more about that later. But everyone was asking me, wow, this is a new feminist movement in Palestine, how is this happening? And I was like, it's not new. There is a very rich history, tradition of women movement in Palestine. And it's not even like started with the establishment of the State of Israel. It dates back to the 1920s. They did like organize demonstrations against like the first colonial settlements. They did organize against the Balfour, and they did like have delegations worldwide connecting with women on international level, and also they played a huge role during the 1936 strikes in Palestine in the 30s. And later, after the Nakba, they did also play a huge role on maintaining the social fabric and also in fighting. In the first Intifada, they also played an essential role. They were not like on the margins. And I can speak a lot about that, where did they do many things. After the second Intifada, with the militarization, they were like pushed a little bit to the back. After the Oslo Accords, the feminist women discourse started to change and to get in a new shape to adapt to the new socio-political context in Palestine. But the thing is, it never disappeared. There was always act of resistance against the patriarchy and again against the colonial structure in Palestine. Even after the Oslo Accords, we had the Feminist Studies Center in Beit Zayt. We are talking about early 19s, so it's not like something new in 2020. Also, in the Great March of Return, like most of the women who were there, thousands of women, they were very active during the first Intifada. So again, the very same people who did like fight before, they are again at the front lines fighting. Most of those structures until today, they are active, but of course, because of the nature of the oppression in Palestine, because like women are exposed to layers of oppression, it's not like one system of oppression. We are living under family oppression, then the society, then the religious structures, and the patriarchy in general in our society in Palestine. And also with all the laws that are not in favor of women in Palestine, and above all, the colonial structure that is exploiting the norms and the patriarchy for its benefit, and like I would call like population control. They are very smart in using the patriarchy that is like against us by families and society in their favor. So women are really fighting a very, very like hard fight in Palestine, and they are trying to survive. With Talat that emerged like last September, they were like, no, there is, I'm not sure if you have heard about them, but they like thousands of women took the streets, not only in Palestine, in Berlin and Haifa, and the refugees camp, in the diaspora, and they said basically, no liberation without women liberation. No free homeland without free women. And that's the start point of putting the feminist issue at the heart of Palestine liberation. So I refuse to reduce the role of Palestinian women to the mother of the martyr, or, because they also try to push that to the background and say, oops, your lives are not a priority maybe after the liberation of Palestine. But this is like in general about the role of Palestinian women in Palestine. We are very active and we will keep fighting.
This one. Thank you, Fida. And of course, then the lack of portrayal or information about this in our media is of course not related with the absence of women mobilizing in Palestine. As we see, on the other hand, there has been a huge portrayal of Kurdish women, as we know, in the last years. Maybe more in the times of the Kobani resistance against Daesh, maybe less recently when Turkey is the invader. But still, a lot of people in Europe are aware at least about the existence of women liberation movement in Kurdistan. But what is actually the role of women in this movement, in Rojava especially, and in Kurdistan in general?
I think it's really close to the Palestinian issue that most of the time we just fell attention when it's the daily struggle, when something is happening on the street, but we don't care about history, and we don't know actually really well our own history. And this is also maybe the main heart of the Kurdish struggle, that they say, like, if you want to analyze the situation now, you have to analyze the history and to get to know the history, because you can learn so many things out of it, and you can also make a change. That history is not like the capitalist modernity, it leads to the end will be forever and ever capitalism and patriarchy or a state or whatever. If you understand the history right, there is changings, and there is also a connection to the nature, and the nature also has to renew herself, and that's why also the waves of struggle, they are coming and going, but we should never lose the flow of it. And this is a bit what I want to tell, that like, even if you are struggling now, the women and mothers and grandmothers struggled before. They were also fighting against patriarchy, they were fighting against national states, they were fighting against borders between each others, because what they're looking for is life. And what is life? Life is freedom, if something can grow. The Kurdish women's movement is also, one of these main issues is also women live freedom, so Jinjian Azadi. And where does it come from? Like that also, you cannot liberate neither a land, neither a colonialized society if you not liberate the women. And just because it's like the heart of society, and this is why it's really connected, the struggles. I think also like Kurdish and Palestinian women, they also know each other from before. No, they also had education camps together. They were learning from each other, and we should never forget that we continuing on this tradition of revolutionary thought. Maybe I can add a bit because we have to focus most of the time to Rojava at the moment, but because we call it also as there is a woman revolution. It's not a revolution, it's really a woman revolution, because the focus is, if you liberate the woman, then you can liberate the society, and to build up a new way of living, like with the communal life, agriculture, whatever, like everything which is going together then. But the history of the Kurdish women's movement is belonging to the history of PKK, and this is also like, it has a history of 40 years. And also the women guerrilla, like they organized them autonomously, also in the mountains. It was 93. That they said, like, okay, we reached the point that we can go we can escape from the society, from the family, patriarchal family structure. We go to the mountains and we can fight there. But they realized that the male friends, they put them in the same role. They didn't believe that a woman can fight ideologically and with a weapon as strong as a man can, even more, because they never give up. Because a man always have he can go to the front line, he can fight until he dies, or he always have one step to go back, because he is never fighting for his existence, and the woman always has to fight for her existence. And this is a bit special, because there you see that the will of the woman, when she starts to fight, she will never lose this path and you can also see it in the struggle in the prisons in Diyarbakir, in Ahmed. You had this in the 80s, this huge, like everyone got courted, and they had to continue the struggle, like the PKK tried to continue the struggle in the prison. And it was Sakine Jansis who could organize the women inside the prison such well that no one of the women said I'm Turkish, because they want to obey that all the Kurds say like I'm Turkish. So it was Sakine Jansis could organize the women that no of these women obey. But in the male tract you had some men, they obeyed. And this is what I mean with you have always the possibility to step back, but as a woman you can't. And this is what means now also Rojava really important, because we can see it in Afrin, like Turkey was occupying last year Afrin, and now it continued with Serekania and Girespi. But what we see in Afrin is the people, it was especially the women, also like the normal villagers, they were living there protecting the land, because they said, no, this is also our future, we cannot leave this land. And now they always say like we will go back for it's nothing we will never give this land to the colonialist, patriarchy, fascist state of Turkey. For sure we will take it back. And the same a bit like in Shengal, the Yazidi women, they also say like there is no way. Our culture is belonging to our earth, and so if we want to continue with our culture, we have to go back there. And this is what it means a bit to understand the whole, like it's not just a woman taking a weapon and fighting. There is such more behind, because if your land is raped, it means like you the woman's body got raped, or it seems like your mother got raped, because what you're getting from this land is life. And all this things, we have to see them as ideological seeds. They can grow when you start to fight. And how you start to fight? While you're organizing. First you're organizing yourself, and then you organize with the people around you, and you start to deconstruct all these borders, which got since. The Kurdish women's movement says not since 6,000 years we have this patriarchy, and it started with small steps to build up borders in between us, and this is what we have to deconstruct in step by step.
Thank you, Amara, and yes, it's very important to remember that at the beginning of the Kurdish liberation movement, even when the first training camps for the PKK were established in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon, it was the Palestinian movement that allowed the Kurdish youth, women and men, to learn how to use weapons, to use them as a tool of resistance in Turkey at the time. And so the link between the two movements stems from what is now even old times, from a completely different epoch. And at that time, the Palestinians were already well known for having a militant woman that also carried out incredible and famous action that had also an international impact. Whereas maybe the protagonism of the Kurdish women in the Kurdish movement came in the years later. So we should also, as Amara said, deconstruct a lot of things in order to understand what is actually going on. But coming back to Palestine, both Kurdistan and Palestine are occupied territories, occupied in many senses, in many forms. But of course, Palestine is well known to have been occupied since decades. And just in these days, the meeting of the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu with the President of the United States, Donald Trump, seems to open the way for institutionalization even stronger of the occupation, at least of the Jordan Valley, that would become even part of the state of Israel. And we know also the current position of the US government in relationship with the problem of Jerusalem. But what I wanted to ask to Fidaa is how, in particular, a regime of military, political, institutional occupation is related to patriarchy. So how the patriarchal paradigm is maybe reinforced by a regime of occupation.
Before answering that question, I'd like just to go back again to the new feminist movement, or still like very new. And I want to just add shortly why it's different, why I can relate to it, because there are many different women movement in Palestine, but Talat in the sense that it is independent. It does not like belong to any political party. It's mainly social political activists who used social media platform and managed successfully to get thousands of women to the streets. And we went to the streets for the women also who could not come and join us because of Israeli checkpoints between Gaza and West Bank, and also because of the family. We went out like to the streets because we wanted to say like enough is enough. But to start how the occupation is working as a patriarchal tool, or the occupation or the colonial regime itself as a power structure. This is how we can deconstruct it. What is the colonial regime in Palestine? It is a project like constructed by men based on power, exploiting land, disposition of Palestinian bodies, women bodies as well. So we need to talk about all those things that are happening in Palestine. What is this like? What is the relation? I would say like during in September when we asked women to go to the streets, there is something that happened in Jerusalem. So it was supposed that the march will go and say down with patriarchy, stop killing women in the name of honor, and all of that. And at some point, so you could see the intersection between the system of oppression, they saw a Palestinian flag with the protesters. So it was like a women protest against like male violence in the Palestinian society. So Israeli police in Jerusalem, including women police, attacked the protesters. And they said, no, you cannot protest here. So it's obvious how like those structures work. And how is the occupation on this colonial regime like shaping and affecting our lives? As I said, the very first thing is that they exploit the local patriarchy. They use it, like they give this illusion or space for Palestinian men that they are controlling something. So this energy does not explode in the right direction, which is fighting occupation, but they allow on the other side to give this illusion for the men to abuse women. It doesn't mean that there is no patriarchy in the Palestinian society. It does exist like any other society, but it is very complicated and it's being exploited by the colonial regime. And the other thing, it's like the Israeli control over our bodies and land, and this connection between the body and the land. What does it mean, like my land to me, when they also put borders, they put walls? What does it mean, like, if I want to think about it from, like, reproduction health, like, for women? What does it mean that I give birth on a checkpoint? What does it mean if I want to, they say, like, they ask me a lot here in Berlin, yeah, but the family controls, your family as a Palestinian does control, like, you cannot, like, say, I want to marry this guy, I want to marry this girl, they choose your partner or something. And I say, in the same sense, if I am a Palestinian from Gaza, I cannot marry, or my partner cannot be a Palestinian from the 48 or the West Bank because of those colonial laws. So they do in some way control my life, my choices. Even they can control with the siege on Gaza the amount of food and calories I take every day. So we need also to think about like how Israelis controlling women. I need to talk about women prisoners in Israeli jails. I know many like people like to talk about them in like as victims, and they tend to ignore that most of those women inside Israeli jails, they are there because they are Palestinian and they are women, and they tend to ignore or victimize those women and say yes, free them, but they don't like to mention that they are there because they resisted. There is act of resistance. They are not there just because they are victims. Those women said no, and those women are being abused inside Israeli jails. They are blackmailed for information. They are being sexually assaulted. They are not allowed to see family members. And of course, this applies also to men inside Palestinian men inside Israeli jails. And not also that, and also we can talk, for example, I would say, about breast cancer patients in Gaza. So in order to get outside of Gaza, so we are talking about women's right to access healthcare services. Inside, to get out of Gaza, you have no choice. Either it's Egypt, but because the regime in Egypt is very they are cooperating on a very high level with the Israelis, so it's closed most of the time. It's very hard to get out of Gaza. It took me 8 months to get out of Gaza. Or you go from the Israeli-Gaza border. It's called Erez checkpoint. And many women are blackmailed. It's either you tell us something about your neighbors, or you don't get to go and receive the treatment outside of Gaza. And it's 2020, and we are still talking about breast cancer that at this point it's very easy to cure. But women in Gaza are not allowed to receive this treatment because of those colonial policies who are trying to smash women inside Gaza just because they are resilient inside Gaza. There are many, many examples that I can say how they are controlling us as women in Gaza. And the most important thing that it's what happened with Tal'at, some Israeli feminists say that we want to join the struggle. Can we come and join the protests? And Tal'at said no, not this time. Obviously, people would say, why? It's time to join and work together. But they have a very elaborative, they issued a paper online saying why not. But for me, I was I'm fighting to free myself, my people, my fellow Palestinian men, myself from patriarchy, me and my people from the colonial regime. Meanwhile, some of them who are not anti-Zionist, they are fighting for equal rights to join the army, the very same army that is killing me. So at many levels, we cannot intersect, not in this way. It's not intersectionality. It's not no, it's not like that. And I cannot protest beside someone saying, please don't kill women in the name of honor. And yeah, it's pink and everything is cool. And the next day, the very same person could be standing at a checkpoint, pointing a gun at my head. So it doesn't work this way. This is how we are being controlled as women. So we said no. This movement is for Palestinian women, and also it's to say this is the kind of society that we are dreaming of. A society that it's free from all forms of violence against minorities and women, and also a free society from injustices. And it's important that people, when they ask about women situation in Palestine, that they take the socio-political context into consideration. You cannot just ask me hey, how is the situation in Gaza? I was apparently it's not good, but you need to take the full picture into consideration. You cannot just focus on something on the local level and you ignore that I'm living under occupation, that I'm not allowed, or it's really hard to do even simple social reforms inside Palestine. So this is somehow how the occupation is also working as a patriarchal tool. Another thing that I want to really talk about, I'm sure people who understand Hebrew know how nasty it is in the, like, before the war in Gaza. I was in Gaza, and before the war 2014, I saw many t-shirts, many banners in Hebrew saying, go rape their moms and come safe to your mom. Or like with this bull-eye, a picture with a Palestinian woman pregnant and say one bullet with two, you kill two. So it shows like why also Palestinian women are like in the heart of this like colonial struggle. We are something, of course, because it's the image of like a woman will like give birth to the fighters, and how does it mean like to this demographic threat that they keep talking about. But it shows you how like violating our bodies as Palestinian, of course, it is like at the heart of the colonial structure, and they used it before. In Lebanon, they allowed it in Lebanon, and they allowed it while attacking Palestinian villages during the Nakba as well. Women were killed. They were like horrible pictures coming. It doesn't happen like at this point that we get those pictures, but the very same women do get like rockets from the sky in Gaza. During 2014 war, 320 women were killed. So this rocket, because they say, yeah, but like Israel is very progressive on women issues, and say, excuse me, this rocket does not like say, oh, a group of Palestinian women, no, let's go for the men. It doesn't differentiate, like they are Palestinians. So it is what it is. It is a colonial structure that's trying to kill any sort of existence of Palestinian bodies. So that's...
Thank you very much, Fidaa, for these insights. And Amara, if you want to add something on this same topic, occupation and patriarchy and patriarchal structures.
I also can add like the perspective of the Kurdish women's movement on that, because they say if you start to fight, you for sure have to fight against patriarchy, because we have to liberate ourselves, but we cannot reach liberation without destroy patriarchy in our minds, especially in the minds, because patriarchy is they say there is 6,000 years of patriarchy. It's a long time, and you cannot just switch to non-patriarchy. So it's a huge fight in between yourself. It's a fight in between the relation with your friends, with your neighbors, with your family, and then also with the society and the system of the state, which is based on patriarchy. So what they did, because they faced these problems, that because we have it in our minds, like our mindset is... we got raised or educated through this mindset of patriarchy. That's why we have to start there. And how we do this, we need something like knowledge or science, which helps us to find the way of how we can educate ourselves, how we can train ourselves also to reflect ourselves on different values than the patriarchal values. So they say how we got educated with the history. It's also in the name of history. No, it's his story. And where is the story about women? Where is the story about resistance, about life? And that's why there was the ideas. It came from Abdullah Öcalan, that he said if we want to create a new life, a new society on the level of economical, liberated, gender, democratic basis, we need the science, which is kind of a feminist science, and he called it jineolojî, because it's coming from the Kurdish word like jin, woman, and lojî, knowledge. So the knowledge from the woman. And this is what I'm also like working with it. What does it mean? Because the name, it's good to have something like a name of, okay, we need a women's science, but what does it mean? How we reach these values we want to continue on, we want to base our freedom on our connection in between our relations. And this is also coming from a long-term struggling, like the women in the mountains started with it, that they said, okay, we need to fill this genealogy with values from what does it mean women's liberation, and they start with 5 values, like principles, and the first one is that you need to be connected to your land or to your roots, and it's called in Kurdish, it's called Welat Parezi, and if you translate it in many books, it's translated as patriotism. It's in English, but if you would translate it from the Kurdish, it's more like to protect your own land. The second value or principle is organize. You have to organize yourself, and you have to organize the people around you. And the third one is the free will and the free thoughts, because if you have the thoughts and the like the values from the patriarchy in your mind, you will never reach this freedom of thinking. And when you cannot think without this patriarchal thoughts, you cannot like maybe you have utopies, but they will ever stay utopies. You will never reach to bring them in practice. That's why you need a free will to really overcome all this mentality of toxic male mentality. And then you will come to the fourth principle, and this means fight, like to struggle. You have to choose, and this is your choose. You're not born as a victim, and this is really important to understand. You have to make the step to go to fight. I mean, we don't learn it. No, when we get born, we learn to obey. First from our close family members, and later from the state, from school, whatever. But we never created as someone who can really take the responsibility to fight, and not to fight for ourselves, but because this is what we learn in capitalism. Just to learn to fight for our needs, but to fight for another future, for another life. Means that you really free your will, and you organize you and your friends, and have this relation to the values why you're fighting. And then as the fifth point, they put ethic and aesthetic. And why ethic and aesthetic? It's super important to understand that fight or struggling or war, it like everything what you create against patriarchy, or to resist against patriarchy, it is so horrible. I mean, you face so many really horrible moments, and you have a lot of I don't want to talk about the bad things, but why they also put the point of ethic and aesthetic, because what we want to create out of it has to be ethic and aesthetic. If not, it's the same in another color, like in another the same face with another painting. So with these 5 principles, the Kurdish women's movement said, okay, this is how we want to create a new understanding of fighting or of resisting, and it means also the basis of a new life. And they try to reach it first with educating themselves, with educating people around them, and also to live in the society, not to bring this knowledge which is coming from the society, like the genealogy knowledge, the knowledge of freedom. It is a tradition in society that everyone knows how to continue their own life, no, with the economy, but also the health, how to take care of yourself, that you don't get so sick that you have to go to a doctor, but to help yourself. And all this level of knowledge, it is coming from the society, but it was taken from patriarchy state and capitalist. It was taken away from us, so that we are always belonging to the state. We are always belonging to patriarchy, and they giving us like drugs. So you can have a bit that you never die, but you never live. And when you understand all these mechanics, and the knowledge can come up again. It's nothing new what genealogy tries to create or to bring it up again. It's actually existing in society, but we lost the connection to it. And this is what we try also in Rojava, what the Kurdish woman movement tries, because there's one side is the military defense, but one side is the mental, the health, the economical defense, to be autonomous from the state, from the patriarchy. And this is actually what I wanted to what we can also discuss in this point. No, what does it mean to fight against patriarchy? It is not just to fight against Daesh. It is a really important point, because this mindset is concentrated in the ES mindset. But if you fight, now when we can say Rojava is liberated from Daesh, it means territorially liberated, but the mindset is not that. And that's why every woman says also, we will continue, we will never ever come back to this slavery role we had before. And if we can break with these roles, and maybe we will lose our lives while fighting. But the good thing we will reach is that for us, if one woman fighted and fell shahid or died, there will come 100 new women going this path of freedom and continuing this struggle. And this is something which is, we should never forget, that this knowledge is here, and we just have to take it and bring it again out of the of the dust of the history.
Well, already many things have been said, and I'm sure that many of you have a lot of questions. So since it's very rare to have the opportunity to post them to Fidaa and Amara and discuss together, I will just pose one last questions. Fidaa used to live in Palestine, Gaza until 2017, and he also used to study abroad in Europe. Amara, on the other side, is of European descent, but spent time in Kurdistan. So the question is, women who cross border, of course women do cross border, and the different struggles are already connected at least by those individuals that are, as women, are making their living in different countries, in their country and in other countries. And this poses the question of internationalism today, especially in relation with women. So do you have any insights or thoughts to share about it?
So again, I'll go back to Talat. Why it was really important, and I did see myself in the movement, because it's different from any other Palestinian movement. It's like a feminist movement, very progressive, for women, works for liberation. So I can present it as an example of what like a movement should be. But what they did, that mentally they crossed the colonial borders. It was the first time that the movement managed to organize women in Gaza, in West Bank, in Jerusalem, in Haifa, in Ain al-Hilwa, in the refugee camps in Lebanon, in Berlin. So like at some point when you think, oh, women went to the streets in all those cities, you can imagine a world without borders. Like they really managed to get women through online campaigns to the streets. So it did smash borders. And why it's important for me as a Palestinian, because I never get to see another Palestinian woman, if she's from West Bank or the occupied 48 territories or the refugees camps, it's only in Europe. I cannot dream in my life of seeing another Palestinian person if they are coming from behind another checkpoint. It doesn't happen. It's just that simple. So it was really overwhelming to think of this movement that it's crossing borders. And to me, the very same borders that are separating me from my fellow Palestinian women, where we could not organize together, to me, they are the same borders that, like, not allowing migrants to cross to the USA, where children are being killed. They are the very same walls that Turkey did build between Syria and Turkey, where also Syrian refugees are being killed. It's the very same mentality, neoliberal policies killing us around the globe, but with different tools. So this is, for me, is why very important is to connect struggles. And since I'm not in Palestine right now, like when people ask me, what can we do for Palestine? I say, organize wherever you are. Like, get people around you, influence like the politician around you, but it's like what is like concerns me a lot, it's like the grassroots movement. We need to connect to each other, because at the end we are not seeking like support from the governments, it's the people who are being subjected to all those kinds of violence. And to me, it was very like this movement in Argentina and in Poland. And for me, it's like it's happening everywhere. It's the domino effect, like we were talking in like outside. And it does happen. So if we organize here for Kurdistan or for Palestine, or for women imprisoned in the prisons in Saudi Arabia, it does connect at the end. Every small act, we do it here. And when German people ask me, what can we do to support women in Palestine or Palestinians? I say, like, ask your country not to do arm deals. It's that simple. Don't go to Berlin. Don't go to the West Bank. Like, just here, work in Berlin, where the politics, the real politics are being made, like in the belly of the beast. It's here in Germany. So just like do change here. And now with women, I think it's important to, it's not enough for me to be a woman to organize with another woman. Of course, I care about other politics. I cannot like organize with Hillary Clinton and say, yeah, it's cool, like it's a woman pushing that button for that rocket, like on the heads of the children of Yemen. So, but it's important to organize together as women and to do this network, because I believe it does come positive back on me and on other people around the globe. And essentially because I believe the politics that they are killing us here in Berlin or Chile or Brazil or Syria, it's the very same politics with different tools. So this is why it's important, and for me it's a way how solidarity works. It's like to give spaces, like the way it's being done here. Give space to a voice that knows a lot about the struggle, that can inform people, and most important, to hear from the people themselves. And because like the deal of the century, I'm sure like everyone was like hearing about it, like the new deal between Netanyahu and Trump about Palestinians and our lives. So it was like everyone during some Arab countries and some Islamic countries, they know everything about the deal, but it's for us Palestinians who we don't know anything about. Like they are trying to shape our lives without like taking our opinion. It's been done for years like that, but the thing is, we should not do this on this very small local level. So it's always important to include Palestinians in the discussion and hear their point of view, their feedback, especially in a place like Berlin. To me, it's important because we are trying to claim back some of the spaces that's being taken with us under some imagined accusations. So I would say this kind of solidarity that I want is just to shed lights on Palestinian women voices, and most important thing, don't exploit the plight of Palestinian women in order to pinkwash, whitewash the Israeli state. There is patriarchy in Palestine, but there is also colonialism, and we are fighting both. So just like don't turn your back on Palestinian women by just ignoring one of those two sides.
I would also add some points, but I totally agree what you said already. It's super important to organize wherever you are and struggling for the same aim, for the same goal. Even, maybe we look different, maybe we have another language, but the essence why we are fighting and against what we are fighting is actually the same. So for the Kurdish struggle, I mean, now we saw it in... I have to start a bit more in the history again. Kurdistan is also separated in the four national states. You have the part which belonging to the state of Iran, the part belongs to the state of Turkey, to Iraq and Syria. So the Kurdish women themselves, they were always separated from each other. And as you said, sometimes you cannot cross these borders because of checkpoints, because of passports, not existing visas, all these rules which they create to separate from each other. But to break these walls in your mindset is super important, to feel connected with what the women on the different areas where they are, what they face and where against what they are struggling. You have to feel it or to connect in your mind, in your heart with them, and then you can also double their struggles. Even if you never talked to each other, if you never saw each other, you can fight for the same things, thought or a revolution, to fight for the same aim, for the same goal. Wherever you are, on one day we will reach each other. But at the moment, sure, there are so many differences, and it's also a strategy or a tactic more from this capitalist system and from the patriarchy to build up these borders that we try before they have to destroy our movements. We destroy ourselves because we have some disagreements, whatever, and we cannot overcome them. So this is what we face a lot in the left scene. And another thing, I mean, that's why it was this year when Rojava got attacked last year. It was so great to see that in every part, like in South Africa, in Latin America, in India, the women rise up against the attacks of Rojava, and also under the slogan "Women Defend Rojava." It was great. What kind of different actions and different slogans, different voices we heard from everywhere, and this gave so much solidarity for the people there while fighting on the front line. Saw these pictures and they got such a big motivation to continue because they felt they're not alone. Now it's really for the future, for overcome all these historical borders what were created in between us, to overcome this. And when we reach this, then it would be the real feminist, I don't know how we will call it, or democratic confederalism worldwide. I don't know this utopian world we can dream of, but we already start to walk on that path. And so when we connect to each other, we we continue, but also we will reach it.
Thank you, Amara. So now I think it's time to open a discussion. So if any of you have questions or interventions, you can also use this microphone, since there is the podcast from No Border Radio. Then we can also help you with the microphone. Is there anyone that want to begin with the question? Then we can also gather one or two or three, and then they will answer. Please.
Use the other one.
Hi. Well, thank you for your contributions here. I think that how you describe the situation is very helpful. Of course, it's very complex, and my question would not be like in this complexity because we will never finish. There's a lot of information already, and we can just talk about all these descriptions in an endless way. But I think also there are, as you said, it was very important also that here there are many things to do in Berlin. I think Germany hasn't taken like really its responsibility. Like Europe in general has left this place to as if it was like a politics between the US, Russia, Turkey, and the like. But it's Europe. It's really in it has a lot of things going on. Like for the Palestinian issue, I think it's this just that the German government banned the BDS. I think it's a very problematic approach to the Palestinian issues, especially because there are German associations and German Stiftungen, German foundations in the West Bank. I mean, you have the Rosa Luxemburg, you have the Heinrich Böll and everything. You have first-hand information on what's going on inside. And all of these parties, the Linke, the Grüne, everybody agreed unanimously to forbid BDS because it was an attempted attack to Israel. There is this historical fact with the relation of Israel, of course, but then, I mean, things are getting more complex all the time, and I think it's time to get a grip on it and to really denounce what is going on and say with all its words what is happening. And my question is, how do you see this? And just another question, maybe this one to Davide Grasso, because there's also something going on the Kurdish arena. I read recently in the Guardian published an article by the end of December that there was another international, I don't know if you know him, it's Paul Newey from the UK, and they started harassing his family, saying that the JPG was a terrorist organization already, and this links to the PKK being tagged as a terrorist organization already, and then they are shifting this to the JPG, really outcasting these organizations. I mean, this is something that might even in the future affect you, or any sense of solidarity that can be built up from these places. And how do you see this politics? What is happening in Europe? I mean, England is going to leave the European Union sometime soon, but Germany at the end is going to be in the middle of this politics. Paris and Berlin are going to be very important in this realpolitik.
Anyone else want to pose questions or say something? Don't hesitate.
Yeah, we still have time. So then I'll answer, and maybe people think of other questions. So how do I see what's going on in Germany regarding the BDS and Palestine? Okay, it's fine. So honestly, it's Germany is 30 years behind, even compared to Europe and Britain when it comes to Palestine. Right now, at this moment, I know how was it. I was talking with Davide before about this. I know how to describe it. If you are Palestinians, your mere existence here in Germany is oh, what's going on? I've been attacked just because of wearing the Palestinian traditional thobe. So I didn't even open my mouth, and I was even if my existence in some circles is not tolerated, even without saying anything, it says a lot. Why are you not accepting my existence as a Palestinian within feminist circles in Germany. And of course I question it. It's like, you cannot just like say, I don't like you or I don't like your existence because I support like Israel or something like that. So this is like one thing that like it's really hard here in Germany, and I cannot like grasp it. I've been traveling a lot. I've never seen anything like that before. It's only here in Germany I've seen something like this. And the thing is like, first of all, we need to understand the BDS. It's like one of many tools that Palestinians are using. It's not the goal. It's just like one of the tools, and it's like one of the most peaceful. It's like the bare minimum someone could do is like to boycott. It's like any oppressive regime. It's not only Israel. If people send out like calls to boycott the Turkish regime, then I need to do it. If the people in Kurdistan would do something like that, then I need to do it if like I'm really for justice. But the thing here, because of the history, the way they justify these things, like it will never like happen again. You cannot just like basically support another oppressive regime because you don't want oppression to happen. Like I cannot like really understand this German like how complicated it is. The other thing is like how all political parties supported this in the German parliament. People tend to ignore that the BDS movement started from the civil society in Palestine. So the civil society organizations, the very same civil society organizations that Friedrich-Ebert-Stiftung und Heinrich-Böll-Stiftung und Rosa Luxemburg and all of those Stiftungen are working with, they are the very same people. Even the unions in Palestine, they did sign the BDS, and it started from there. All women organizations in Palestine, they are like on the list of those who initiated the BDS back in the early of 2000. So this is the thing, and I know, but it's not, I think it's not illegal. It is not illegal to do the BDS in Germany, but of course it does contribute in silencing the Palestinian voices here. It's not illegal. But the way they are pushing, actually there are many cases that were won in other cities where the municipality had to pay money back for Palestinian activists because they were denied spaces. I know where, but it's in the south of Germany, many cases were won. And the other thing, how is this being used? It happened here in Berlin twice, where at the last moment we were denied some spaces. But what it's important to connect here is that it does not target Palestinians alone. It targeted some Iranian refugee activists, and it targeted Kurdish activists. So if you saying as a Kurdish or as Iranian, you host a Palestinian, we will cut your funds, again, it's like a way to control any voice, regardless of it's Palestinian or Kurdish, and say, no, we will not fund you, and actually we can take you to prison with this and this accusation. Then for me it's important to push back this narrative because it does not affect me alone. This is how the state thinks, the mentality of this silencing any voice that does not fit the narrative of the state here in Germany. This is how I would say, but as I said, it's important to think of what the German government is doing to Palestinians or not, because all those funds they are sending to Palestine, it's like humanitarian funds, pacification money that goes to some projects, to say, so they are not helping in any really positive way. But as I said, I'm not expecting anything from governments, regardless. It's the German government or any government around the globe. I'm not interested in state structures to help me. I'm looking for solidarity from people who are just sitting in the room. Those are the voices who mean a lot and matter to me, because they will be affected in the same way that I'm affected here in Germany.
Are there other questions? then I will also, of course, answer. For the issue of the internationalist supporters of the Rojava revolution, that is actually by now since at least 4 years the northern Syria revolution, so it's not just a Kurdish issue, it's also an Arabic and Assyrian issue regarding different peoples in the region of the north, and is also a political proposal for Syria as a whole and for the Middle East as a whole, and that we shouldn't forget. In fact, there have been harassing of people who have been in northern Syria, especially to fight, but not only to fight, harassing Kurdish activists in Germany, for example, a lot, but also Europeans that join the struggle. The United Kingdom is unfortunately on the avant-garde in this kind of persecuting in different ways, and this last case of Paul Newey is especially serious because it was done against his family. So his father, his sister were harassed in their house and questioned because Paul was in Syria at the moment. And of course the authorities are 100% aware also of the side to which in the Syrian conflict Paul belongs. Denmark has a trial against YPG fighter from Denmark. In Spain, there are people that went to jail because they fought to defend Rojava revolution from Daesh. In Australia, there have been cases like this, and in Italy, there was the attempt by the state to accuse two Sardinian pro-Kurdish activists. One of them also was in YPG of terrorism, which, by the way, is the most insulting way of persecuting someone in this case, because this means to show a complete disregard for the 12,000 people who fell fighting for this cause, to fight terror, also to defend our own cities in Europe from that kind of terror that, of course, occurred especially in the Middle East, especially in Syria, in Iraq, and in other Muslim countries, but we should never forget that also affected Berlin, and also affected Paris, and also affected different European cities. So those people, Arabs, Kurds, Assyrian Christians of Syria, they lost their lives also to protect us here in Europe. To accuse someone that from Europe went to give a little help, very minimum help, over there for this universally valuable struggle of terrorism is something that really describes, I think, very well what is the level of morality, unfortunately, of our European institutions. In Italy then, since it didn't work to prosecute ex-YPG fighters for terrorism, because there is no evidence whatsoever, not factual, not juridical, that we committed any act of terrorism, even for the European, for the Italian law, for the Turkish law, of course, but Italy is not Turkey, at least not yet. But they tried, and this I want to say, they tried another way. They used this very old law that stems from 1931, and also the date might tell you something. It was the time of Mussolini and the new fascist penal code, and in that code was also foreseen the possibility to limit the freedom of the individual without trial. And that was, in fact, a law that was used against anti-fascist militants in Italy at the time, in the 30s. And you believe it or not, this law has not been abolished since the Republic and the defeat of fascism in Italy. The law has been changed in '56 and then in 2011, and just basically adapted to the new times, and for certain aspects even made worse. So basically they tried to apply it to 5 of us, me included, and then there is also a woman that fought with the YPG in Afrin, and there is a guy from Turin that was a civilian in Afrin under the bombardment of 2018, and together with 2 other fighters that we were propose for restrictions that would be like to be expelled from our city, to elect our residency in another city, that we would not be allowed to live anymore for 2 years, renewable, and then we should sleep at home from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. every day and go to the police every day, and we would not be allowed to speak in public, to reunite with more than 2 people at a time, and we would have a passport and a driving license confiscated. A lot of things that are typical of this kind of a fascist totalitarian mentality, that even if I'm not accusing you of a crime, even if I'm not reconstructing something that happened in the past as a state, I consider it a crime. I'm just making a perspective for the future, for your future behavior, because you have a certain kind of personality. And in fact, all the documentation that the police provided to the state attorney was exactly how to describe the personality of someone, basically, because he went to Syria to fight with the YPG, saying, okay, YPG is a suspicious organization because it might have links with the PKK, but especially the fact itself that it comes to the mind of these people to go in Syria and to fight against Daesh means they are dangerous anyway, especially because it's a revolutionary movement, it is an openly socialist movement, and advocates also for the change of society and the struggle against capitalism. And this is enough, maybe not to call them terrorists, this we will see, but of course to limit their freedom. And so basically there is these different attempts in our states, and I might just conclude that mid-March there will be, for example, the response of the tribunal in Italy for the last 3 friends that are proposed for this kind of measure. I've been acquitted, another guy has been acquitted. There was a big victory also because of the mobilization we were able to do in Italy against this, but there are still Jacopo, Eddie and Paolo, 3 people that are waiting for the response. I just want to say that this is really, it could seem that it's not, but I think it is related with what also Fidaa was saying and the previous question. So why, for example, in Germany or in Europe or in the West, we are inclined, for example, to think that the Palestinian issue, is important, but in some ways disturbing. Because we have a problem about the idea that there are Western democracies or systems that are related to the history of Europe and a certain political mindset of the European nation state as a form of government that could help the other people that of course are inferior, are not able to reach this point without our help to solve their problem. And this is really a problem of mentality. And that is what is applied actually to Israel. And this is the hypocrisy about the solidarity, I think, with Israel that might exist in Italy as in Germany and in other European countries. And this is the hypocrisy also of, for example, describing the Kurdish question and the Kurdish struggle not as a revolutionary, socialist, radical, democratic and feminist struggle, but as like the Kurds that are similar to the West, and they actually are importing our values and defending our values in the Middle East against Daesh, which is absolutely not the case. And that you see that when someone concretely does something for the Kurdish struggle, for the anti-Daesh struggle in Syria, then comes back in the Western democracies, and the state tries to use any possible tool, the definition of terrorism and even fascist laws, to prosecute those internationalists. So this, in fact, should make us also reflect about how hypocritical the Western culture in politics could be. I don't know if Amara wants to add something. This, anyway, the microphone is open for other questions. Don't be shy. We should use this time because it's really important.
I'd like to add something, which is like really any radical movement, regardless of its like feminist movement, it doesn't threat patriarchy, it does threat the state. And because the state itself, regardless of it's like the German state, a colonial structure like Israel, they fear such movements, and this is why like they try to contain such movements. So we have like state feminism, we have right-wing feminism, we have like many like
unbelievable forms of like feminism. This is like why for this new feminist wave in Palestine, like as I said, we have many feminist structure or women's structures in Palestine. Some of them, they did compromise with the Palestinian Authority. Like, let's say, for example, when they speak out, they would speak about the Israeli atrocities against Palestinian women, but when it comes for like a Palestinian woman jailed inside the PA prisons, even tortured, they will not speak. And this is how Talat, the very last, like in the last movement, they say, no, we are addressing like violence from all sources, regardless if it's like religious structures, from the colonial structure, and even from the PA. And this is the kind of movement that I want to subscribe to, that says no, because I know if I'm subjected to such kind of violence, they will not turn their back on me. If I say like I don't fit here, they will say we support you. And this is kind of like movements that states do fear, something that like breaks all the rules and does not like submit to like those invisible social political like guidelines. They break the ceiling, and this is such movement, of course I will endorse. And this is why also important here, I will not go to this CDS, this day that was like sponsored by the Israeli embassy in Berlin. Exactly, CSD day. It was like, I cannot like endorse such event. Like, it's not only because like it's not like intersectional. I don't want to like abuse using the word intersectionality, but it is sponsored by a government, and not like a very normal government. It's sponsored by a colonial like structure. Even if it's sponsored by the German government, I will not attend any event that's sponsored by like money coming from a government. The very same government that is like, states are the most dangerous thing like that, threatening our lives. Like, and this is the thing that they decide, no, you are dangerous, we will arrest you, we will restrict you, but who is holding states accountable? Like Germany is selling arms to Saudi Arabia, and they are killing Yemeni children in Saudi Arabia. So this is for me is the real act of terrorism, like terrorizing another like population. So who decides, like who define what is okay and what is okay? If it's like the state defining those things, I will not abide with those definitions. It does not fit me. So any act of resistance I do as a Palestinian, it will not be acceptable, of course, here in Germany or elsewhere for anyone who does not like, who feels threatened by such act of resistance. And like, I ask, what can I do here? Like, I ask people, they say, okay, you cannot do this, you cannot throw stones, you cannot do the Great March of Return, you cannot do that. And then I say, what can I do? And they don't say anything. And I understand the only act that it's acceptable from me as a Palestinian is the act of submission, and you cannot get around that. They want me to submit and stay silent and just die, like without even like shouting. So this is the thing. Like, I think we should keep fighting together. And I want to add something on the Kurdish struggle. It's not like only they opened training camps and did they work together in Lebanon. Actually, we had like the first 7 martyrs. They were Kurdish in Qalat Shqaif. I don't know how to translate this in English, but there are 7 Kurdish comrades who died in Lebanon fighting like together with Palestinian fighters. So it's not only like training camps and common things. No, they fought together. And this is the thing. We need to fight together in order to shake this global structure that it's killing us in the name of capitalism, neoliberalism. It's like in many forms. So we need to shake it and like make this movement an example of a very just, inclusive movement that does not like leave anyone behind. So this is the kind of word, even if they say it's utopian, we already started fighting, and we should keep fighting for such word that where everyone could like live in peace and have like just life. And yeah, I think that's it. Usually I'm never this person who asks the question from the audience, but obviously everyone's shy as well. So I do have a question, but I know that Fidaa already corrected, but just like to really make sure that everybody is clear that the Bundestag did not outlaw BDS. They only had a resolution saying BDS is anti-Semitic because the German Bundestag is an expert on anti-Semitism since 1933. And every time that it was used in court, like local courts, like in the south and in Bonn, it was actually rejected, and we won the court cases. I have a question about like I'm really excited about this event and hearing you, and I think there's also something very like autonomous and revolutionary in making those connections between struggles that I think also goes against like older kind of white German, you know, like norms and practices of like where solidarity starts and where it begins and which struggles are in the center and so on. And so and also with feminism and how like the NGOization in like Palestine, but like here I was shocked to realize that actually most of the civil society organizations in Germany are funded by the German state. It's really quite mind-blowing when you think about it, and the way also even just a little bit mainstream women's rights or feminist organization would be sort of pushed to work on issues of like policy and that sort of like engaging with the state. And so for me there's also something really powerful in like the power we have as people in not just trying to focus all the time on like demands or asks from somebody who has the power, because obviously if they wanted to use the power for the benefit of the people, that would not be the case as it is today. And I want to ask just about your future plans and dreams and aspirations within the No Border Feminism and more broadly if you want to share.
I think so. Maybe we can ask the group, No Border Feminist group from Berlin.
Because we are invited by them, and they are the organizer and the collective.
Magda, you're coming.
Actually, I didn't expect that it's a question for No Border Feminism, but as we said before, we are a really new form group, so we have a lot of ideas in our heads. We are now 5-6 people, all friends. So really start something with like something very intimate, sing in our homes and talking about what we were, like our topics that we were following. Like I was following mostly Palestine. There, Julia, she follows mostly the Rojava women revolution, and of course Ibalu, she's from Bolivia. So yeah, the idea is to connect struggles, women's struggles. We strongly believe that this is the future. And we are also inside the Alliance. So I would also ask someone from the Alliance to say something, because I think it's a really amazing group, like feminist group, trans feminist group. And with them, we are also organizing the 8th of March. So we are inside the Alliance, can I say? Yes. So yeah, the next point will be the 8th of March demo. So you're all welcome, just follow the event. And we also think to do some readings at the radio, so we want to exploit much more this platform, the No Border Radio, so follow the No Border Radio. And all languages, of course, we speak mostly Italian, so we feel much more comfortable with Italian, but of course, if there's some English speaker between us, we try English. But all languages are welcome to contribute, all women are welcome, all trans women are welcome, everyone who feels a little bit as a woman and believes in the struggle are welcome to contribute, to make their readings, to make discussions. It's mostly thought as an interactive environment. And because we organized also brunch, and this morning we were cooking, we say, oh, this is so amazing time spent between women that think and had the same view of the world, just cooking together. It's so fun. So we can do it like once on Sunday, a month, or every 2 months, and just create a social space where we can just stay together and discuss So this is all the ideas we have. It's not like a political program, or we don't believe in that because we are also busy with so many other stuff. There's Julia, she's almost graduating with her PhD. She's in crisis now, like panicking a lot. And then Francine, busy with her German studies. So yeah, we are all busy. So everyone is welcome, and yeah, we want to be friends, and we want to share, and we want to have a common and build a common view, and of course inform ourselves with what is going on around.
Thanks a lot, because also when we got invited, it was the same feeling, no, that you see that the struggle is connecting to each other by movements, and also not feminist movements which got created from the state, because we are not questioning a state or a structure for our freedom. I mean, we have to fight for ourselves, and this is also the future view. What I wanted to share with you, that this is what we are doing. No, every day we are fighting, but it started already to connect to each other, and on one point we reached such a movement or such a strait that we can deny the state because we're not belonging anymore to it. They will collapse by themselves, because we're not asking them for anything. We don't need help from them. Everything we can build up by our own.
Yes.
I just would like to make a comment about what we can call it the feminist or woman movements in the whole Arabic territory and Middle East territory, from Northern Africa till we could rush at Iran, also in South Turkey, in the Rojava, in all these area. All these movements, they are inspiring by each other, and they became also inspiring for the whole women's movement in the world. Here the feminist movement in Germany, they have the focus that equal in the liberal market, in the work, to take the same position in management, to be a manager, because there is more than 70 of the manager in Germany, they are men, and like 30% they are almost women. Also there is woman like women are being beaten in Germany. No one is talking about, and it's pretty impressive how it's inspiring from when we talk about the revolution in Sudan. It's or the rebirth of the Arabic Spring again. Unfortunately, we saw that there were kind of a new revolution in Egypt that Sisi could success to stop it now, but it will rebirth. Revolution couldn't success in one day. It's a long process to have, and we see now every few years now we have a new revolutionary wave in the Arabic country, because we have a very bad regimes. Unfortunately, they are supported from capitalism regime in the whole world. There is good cooperation with Putin, with Trump, with China, and they are always trying to stop and block any freedom movement or any liberal movement in the Middle East and in the whole world. Why? Because if you are inspiring people with a revolution from there, you will have also a new revolution in this Western world when everything is organized, as they tried to say, but it's not really well organized. We need always to make more revolution, more peaceful, and we need to support women. Let's go again to what women are striving for in Middle East. Women are striving to go to the school or to university, to work. Here there is no problem with that. And also, we didn't talk that women has no choice to choose who gonna marry, because they are getting treated as a kind of stuff that the father gonna sell his daughter just to get her price. It's a lot to do. The most important thing is education, and it's pretty important to support the social media to break the borders. Now we have nothing, only the social media to break this border they are trying to create. 10 years ago or 20 years ago, before the internet, before all these social media platform we are using, it was impossible to share ideas. It was impossible to know how life look like in other places. You just need to look at the documentary that is made probably by media founded by the governments or so on. So it's important how social media break the borders, and it's important also to show the solidarity in the civil between the civil society, because regime always try to show the other society, the different society, as demons coming to attack us. Thank you.
I have a question. It's about, I'm wondering long time what happened between the cooperation of the Kurdish movement and the Palestinian movement. And also I'm wondering what happened between the cooperation of the German left and the Palestinian movement, because I mean we know that the RAF, for example, was trained as well by the Palestinians, and I this is something I really don't understand. What had been the development, and that we're coming to the point right now that is like very much separated from my point of view, but maybe it's not. Maybe there is something I don't see, but I would like to know if you have an idea or perspective of it.
So the first question, it's like how are like the relation between the Kurdish movement and the Palestinian movement, or the Palestinian left, if there is any left. So it's like the most important thing, as I said, is the relation between the people, the grassroots movement. It's still there are channels open, and still like many Kurdish people supporting the Palestinian right to self-determination, and of course many Palestinians like me do support the Kurdish struggle, but there are still some official channels between the Kurdish leaders and the Palestinian leaders and the left in Palestine. But like I would say everyone is dragged in their own thing. But for example, when the attack happened on Afrin, some Palestinian parties, left-leaning parties, they did like send papers supporting the Kurdish people and the Kurdish struggle. Regarding what happened between the German left and the Palestinian left, like I don't really like know what happened, or maybe someone just like hit the German left on the head or something. Because the German left here, it's not like a left anymore. Like even the very left, like even among even within Die Linke, there are some very like pro-Israel tendencies. It's like it's becoming like an ideology. It's not solely confined to one group, I would say. Even in the Greens many years before, they were like pro-Palestine, and even the Greens who are like, they are the very first one who are supposed to oppose militarization in general as a progressive group, or so, like even oppose like the Israeli regime is uprooting trees in Palestine. They are like not allowing farmers. So then what kind of green policies are you talking about if you support such state here in Germany? So it's like, yeah, very liberal green movement. But what happened, it's like years and years. It's not like just one day. It's after the reunification. What are the policies that shape all of that? It's many things, but they would say it's the history that now we realize that we must support Israel and oppose anything that does would harm Israel. But I believe it's like capitalist interest. Israel, for me, it's a project implanted in the Middle East, and the German state does have mutual interest. It's not like about history. Of course, we would see we would see white Germans here entitled to their opinion. They are attacking Jewish people here in Germany. If a Jewish person says like, yeah, I oppose the Israeli government, Germans would attack him. Like, they are more Zionist than some of the Zionists themselves here in Germany. So even there are some Israeli liberals here living in Germany, and they're like, yeah, there is more freedom to criticize the Israeli government in Tel Aviv than here in Berlin. I was like, impressive. And they are Israeli liberals, and I don't agree with them at all. But there are Israelis and saying this, then what kind of atmosphere are like the very like mindset, this entitlement to defend the Israel? So I say at some point, people will decolonize people who are living in that space, the historic Palestine, and they will come to the point and say, we can live all together in a one state or no state at all, no borders, and then we will hear a German voice, what about the two-state solution? So it's dead. It was born dead. So I think people at some point will agree on like ending occupation and all of that, but we will still hear voices coming from here. No, guys, it's not good for you. Yeah, of course, you know better because of the history, of course. So I don't know what's happened, but my hopes are really high that this generation, people can like, at least we can elect decent politics. If we cannot smash the system from within, of course, it's very hard. We need to change everything. It's not the kind, with those political structures, nothing would change. Like, it's just like, there are something different, but for me, states are states, regardless it's the US or it's like Germany. It's like, just like another beautiful like facade, but the same politics, violating our bodies, violating our rights, violating our existence. So I know what's happening to them, but yeah, that's the only answer that I have. If any other questions, because I want to add something. You mentioned something, and then you mentioned something as well. Why it's some of the feminist movements here, they work like on some issues. Of course, we don't have them, or we have other like things to worry about in our countries. But for me, any feminist movement with any like demands, it's important for me. If they are like demanding abortion, even if it does not affect me, it's really important for me, like any small act that they do, because like it's freedom, like to ask for their rights, for example. If it's like early marriage does not affect like women here, it does affect us, and we have to worry about that. Or I have to worry that I'm not being killed by a rocket or something like that. But for me, it's important, regardless of what they are asking for. But what is important, on the other hand, they do not impose that on me in Palestine. So you do not come and say, why not work about like equal economic opportunities for women and men in Gaza, while there is an economic siege since 2007. And then, of course, they are working like without taking the political context into consideration. So I've worked with many NGOs in Gaza, and they want to solve the early marriage problems, which is not a big problem even in Palestine, like not huge numbers. But I say you need to address the roots of this economic injustice, of why women are like being treated like that. So this is the thing that I totally oppose, which is the NGOization of feminist issues, the NGOization of the plight of women in Palestine and elsewhere in the world. So we need always to take into consideration what does suit those women, and we ask them, you do not know better what like tools do work in Palestine, so you do not end like making the situation much worse, which did happen in Palestine, that there is like some Western intervention trying to impose some donor agenda or conditions, that the projects basically fail because you do not know the kind of social fabric and social relations that they do work for us. The other point is the revolution that happened in the Arab world. It's important for me to share information. For me, sharing information is like a very like great act of like telling people there's something going on somewhere else. And do governments and states fear this because it's like contagious, ansteckend? So they do fear that. And this is the thing, it started in Tunisia or even in occupied Western Sahara, then Tunisia, then Syria, then Egypt, then also now Sudan, still going on. Of course, the counter-revolution did well on many levels, but what I want to say, that after each revolution, the very perfect utopian society we were dreaming of was there. Before, like somewhere between the revolution, after the revolution and before the counter-revolution. So in Egypt, in Maidan al-Tahrir, for example, like women were there, the social justice, like it's booming, and like the gays were coming out, no harassment in the streets, and this is like, it's after the revolution where this perfect society, or what the shape of society we are dreaming of, it tries like to shape itself. And after that, when the counter-revolution like hit and the governments hit back, everything does not go back to what it used to be. It goes much, much, much worse. And this is why I think it's like really important to shed light on the revolutionary movements in the Arab world. If anyone have questions anymore, if not, I want to add another thing. This is really important. Our friend Patrick George, he is Egyptian. He went to visit his family 3 days ago in Egypt. He is a gender studies master student in Italy. And once he arrived in the airport, he disappeared. And yesterday, he showed up in one of the courts, but he was kidnapped and he was tortured with electricity and other things. And they decided to give him 15 days. And he is accused of many things, like, you know, the Egyptian regime, something like terrorist organizations, trying to endanger the national security. So it would be amazing and great, and I would really appreciate it, and Patrick's friends as well, if we just like talk about him or just sharing news about him, because basically if you get inside the Egyptian prisons, you never come back, or you just like, they give you 5-6 years without any charges. So his name is Patrick George. Like, if you see anything about him, just like share it with other friends, so we can just like raise some, like put some pressure on the Egyptian government to get him out of the prison. Yes.
Yes, thank you for this, for remembering us the situation of Patrick as well. And I don't know if Amara, you want to add something on this subject, or if you want to wait for more questions. Because if there are no questions, I want to add something. But actually, it's a real question. If there are more questions, because I know sometimes it's normal to be shy, but it's also, I think, important to take advantage of this opportunity. Now, from a European perspective, I wanted to focus 1 second to this question of, for example, why in Germany or in other European countries there is not enough solidarity for the Palestinians, and I would say also for the northern Syrians and for the Kurdish struggle. There are many reasons. I think one of them is that we do not give enough attention to what is going on there. What I mean, for example, maybe we are aware of what are the political parties in Germany, in our own country. We follow sometimes in the detail of the internal politics. Maybe we are aware of hundreds of different fragmented radical left political groups and their different ideologies and contradictions. But then when we speak about Palestine, it looks like Palestine is Palestine, or Rojava is Rojava. And then maybe if you ask someone that is even demonstrating in the street of Berlin for Rojava, they might not even know exactly what it means that there is a revolution there. So what it means that women are freer than before, and is it affecting all women? Do all women agree about these reforms, these new institutions? And what is a commune? How does it work? why we are not building communes here, or well, actually in Berlin someone is doing it, but why we are not endorsing this perspective. What are the difficulties that, for example, this movement is facing right now? And the difficulties are not just the United States, the Syrian regime, and Turkey or Russia. Is even, you know, people inside the region that does not agree, and mainly does not agree exactly because there is a woman revolution. I was talking before with the friends and saying what I always try to explain is that there are a lot of people in northern Syria that would accept the economical reform, the socialist reform of the revolution, would accept even the new political system of the communes. But when it comes to have a woman co-mayor, or to have a Congress of Women that is making laws that actually apply to the whole population, because they say we don't want to wait 5,000 more years of patriarchy and the consensus of men to implement these new laws, well, then there is the violence. There's people organizing themselves with weapons and killing women, supporting the Turkish invasion or supporting the regime and trying to suffocate the revolution. This is also how the international power is right now trying to suffocate the Rojava revolution, exactly supporting the most reactionary forces that in the society are present in Syria. And that's why also what Fidaa says is very important, like colonialism always sustained patriarchy and reactionary policy and traditions and even religious movement the worst in the colonial or post-colonial countries. So this is really also hypocrisy has to be fought, but in order to understand this, we should go into details. So it is not acceptable that maybe we know the internal politics of France, we get informed about how and when and why there is Brexit, but then Egypt, there is just a regime, and then we don't know anything else, and we support Palestine, but then we should also know what are the different political parties and how much the population is involved, what is the sensitivity of Palestinians right now in the West Bank or in Gaza toward their own political parties. We should know that Hamas supported explicitly and openly the Turkish invasion of Afrin and Serkani Ras Al Ain, and that the Popular Liberation Front for Palestine actually supported the Kurdish resistance in Kobani and also the Syrian Kurdish resistance in Afrin. So when we speak about Palestine, we're speaking about a complex society, millions of people, and people with different ideas. And so we should also consider this. Otherwise, again, it's like a superficial stand that is not respecting these people as they are equal to us. It's always like a very vague image. And the same for Kurdistan. In Kurdistan, there are different political parties. In Iraq, there is the PDK that is basically also an ally of the German state and the Italian state. But the PDK is also a very conservative Kurdish party. It is also linked with Turkey and is also linked with Israel. And this is not by chance, because Turkey and Israel, they play the game, you know, on the international media for the spectacle of politics that they are enemies, but in fact they're allies, because they have the solidarity on the most important question, geopolitical and power questions in the Middle East, that is since the 90s. So this is the first thing, and in order to have this respectful approach, I think I agree with what was said before. We should act here and focus to the opposition to our governments, if possible, more effective opposition to our governments. But actually we should also go there, because I supported the Palestinian cause during the Second Intifada, during the following aggressions by Israel. I had also very difficult discussions here in Berlin with friends that were Antifa like me, and we had discussions. But I also have to say that my way of being pro-Palestinian at that time was not okay. Was not the right way. It's not the same way I am now. And one of the big differences is that I did go there. So I got a more concrete picture, and I could speak with the people and see the contradiction and see the humans and see the richness also of the struggle, also the difficulties of the struggle, and the perception that many Palestinian activists have of pro-Palestinian activists in Europe that apparently are more radical and enraged and divide among themselves than the Palestinians themselves. So they are also quite sometimes surprised of this, because there is this approach, like you don't actually know, especially you don't experience that kind of situation, and then it's just in your imagination you are like externalizing the struggle to other people. So of course, if a Palestinian put a bomb, that's very good, but you would never put a bomb in your own country, you would never face prison in your own state. But then, of course, if Palestinians or whatever, or Afghans or other people or Kurdish people do, then you are supporting them. But okay, I mean, let's also go there, organize journeys, because there's nothing measured, especially in Palestine. It's easier than Kurdistan, at least easier than Rojava. But I think it's very important to create the link, also to show directly to these people that we are ready to do it, that we are capable to do it. We have enough respect to go and sleep with them and eat with them and like be hosted by them, and also maybe live in poverty for a few months, a few years with them, and we want to break these walls. And then last thing, about the German left and Israel, I think that one of the reasons that there was all these very big issues that we, I think most of us know, is also because, well, there are many reasons. I just focus to a specific one. I think with the German reunification, kind of maybe the Germans kind of rediscovered themselves. And this is something that I said as an Italian, so I'm completely 100% part of the problem, because historically we are as much responsible as the Germans in like collecting Jews from Rome, from other Italian cities, and bringing them to Auschwitz or to other concentration camps. But of course, with the reunification, there was this, I think, this sense that a question should be posed about anti-Semitism in Germany and neo-Nazism in Germany, and like an overcoming of that heritage that was of course not complete, and even less complete than maybe activists fought in the 80s. And then someone might also consider a certain kind of support to the Palestinians, like the one of the RAF, as problematic, or especially the Revolutionäre Zellen, and certain actions they did in which they singled out Jewish passengers in airplanes and shot them to death, thinking that this was actually helping the Palestinian cause. Or like getting tied to the Arab states and to the secret services of Syria and other Arab states, like it is something that would actually help the Palestinian people, that is actually had always very, that also Fidaa maybe can say her opinion, but I think also the Arab states had in the past part of the responsibility for the situation, not just the Palestinian refugees in their territories, but even the policy of Israel, because of course the Syrian regime, I don't know, was ready to fight against its own people because it was rebelling in the last years, but during the decades it never attacked Israel for the Golan Heights. It was just propaganda. And when the Syrian regime entered Lebanon, was to help the Christian Maronites against the Palestinians. And we could make a lot of other examples. So for example, a certain attitude in the 70s by the European left to support the Arab states acritically, without even posing the question of the fascism that was actually taking place at the core or the height of those states, well, that should be criticized. And I think that was good that the German comrades in the 90s posed this question. It was bad that the Italian comrades didn't pose this question. The problem is that the question was answered in the wrong way. It's like to take stance for Israel, which is for me absolutely ununderstandable and unacceptable, and like so not anymore supporting or questioning or being interested in solidarity with the Palestinians. So this is the problem. So maybe there was a reaction that was also emotional at the time because it was the 90s. Of course, it was the end of the DDR. But now, as Fidaa said, with the new generation of friends here in Germany and in Italy, we can maybe try to find a balance and to be for justice everywhere. So, and Palestinians are not outside our framework of justice, of course. I don't know if there are other questions, or maybe you want to add something.
I would like to add something also to this issue, because I think it's really interesting also to see how much we put ourselves as Europeans, whatever, in the middle of a solution. When there is a conflict, we think like the solution is coming from Europe. Not just the state are thinking like this. Also, I mean, also we have it. And where are we in the connection between Palestine and Kurdistan? It leads me to this question, so that we want to know, where are the German lefts or the European lefts? Are they still connecting with each other? And I can just add a bit, because I also don't know all the relations which are connected in between, but there are a lot of connections. And I can just add one point, is that in the last March, I think, or May, I don't know, last spring, there was a conference in Kobane about the revolutionary youth movements from the different parts of the Middle East. And there also Palestinian friends joined, and also other European from Europe also. But I think this is also super important, that we don't see what is happening and going on there in between. We are everything, every time we think that it has to pass through Europe, or it has to be here, or we have to be connected. And there is also a lot of relations between the Kurdish movement and the Palestinian movements, and as I know, also, I mean, in Lebanon and so on, they are continuing with the work together. And we from Jineolojî, we try also to build up an academy of Jineolojî in the Middle East, not just in northeast Syria, but also in the Middle East, for supporting these connections in between the movements there and the struggles there.
I don't have like I'm running out of energy, but politics are complicated. But again, what interests me the most, it's like the grassroots movements, because I would never side with any Arab regime. Like personally, it's like the revolutions that are the people who are revolting against the regimes, they are my people, and I will side with them. And there is not even a single Arab regime that really did stand by the Palestinian side, and all of them do have relations with the Israelis. If it's not like publicly, it's like under the table, and now they have no shame. They just like say it. And all of them did torture Palestinians. All of them did they are treating Palestinian refugees like not like a human. So I will not side with regimes. Like basically, states are not my friends. They are like our first enemy, to say so. The most important thing for me is like to shed lights and include Palestinian voices and ask them what is good for them, what does suit them before you do anything. Like ask them, is it okay, is it problematic, is it not? Maybe because some of the things that we do, I would find it like, no, that's not helping really. I know that it's like made in good faith, but it's not helping. So it's good like to ask like the Kurdish people or the Palestinians, is it okay to do it this way? Or what kind of solidarity do you need? Which is like easy question. Is this way of solidarity is good, or can we do something else? So this is like what I'm looking for, like solidarity from the people in general. And I'm not, again, expecting anything from the political parties or from the establishment, regardless from the right to the left, if there is any left. And what is important to me is to have things like this one, people connecting together. I would like to see more people from Sudan, from Syria, from Western Sahara, from people from around the globe, just talking together. Because why it's important to talk, it's like even if on the feminist level, like why it's important to speak out, because we always think if like I'm exposed to violence in my house, I think it's only happening to me. And I don't know that there are thousands, if not millions, of women are subjected to the same kind of violence. So it's important to come out, organize, speak together, connect together, because everything is, as we say, what's personal is political. And this is how things work out. There's nothing personal. There's nothing, oh, it's a family issue. No, it's not. It's affecting us all, and it's systematic. So it's important just to work together and do this networking on a very large scale in the future. Yes.
Well, now I don't know if there are any other questions. Of course, are welcome. It's your last opportunity. But otherwise, if we had enough discussion, I think we can just thank Fidaa and Amara for being here today.